Hello grade 7s and welcome to your daily mathematics lesson with WorksheetCloud. If you were with us yesterday, you'll know that yesterday we started some examination practice. We started off the lesson looking at some preparation tips and techniques for leading up to your test or assessment or exam. And then we went into a couple of pointers on the day. So if you'd like to go back over those, or if you didn't see the lesson yesterday, then have a look at the pre-recorded lesson that's up on the WorksheetCloud.com website. We went through the first 13 or 14 questions, I think. We worked through them on the Google Jamboard. Then we cut it at about 36 minutes. And today we're going to finish off the rest of those questions. Remember that I've also left the examination paper, the practice paper, as well as the memo on the online activities for you to access so that you can go over them again and test yourself and see what you can remember. It might also be a good idea to time yourself while you're doing that paper and see how long it takes you and see if you can finish in the allotted time. So remember the email address, grade7@worksheetcloud.com. Should you have any questions or queries, then please send them over and I'll be happy to answer them. But yeah, guys, I'm not going to go through all those tips I gave you yesterday. Please have a look at yesterday's lesson and see if those tips, techniques, advice, whatever you want to call it, see if it might be able to help you moving forward. Okay, but let's go back to the Google Jamboard and carry on going through some of the questions. Just remember all the questions that we're going to cover, except one, has been covered in all the lessons we've done up until this point. So if there is a question you're not 100% sure of, then you can go back and look through the Worksheet Cloud lessons and online activities and memos and just brush up on those skills or on that content that you're not 100% sure about. Right, let's get to the Jamboard. Question 15 is an area question, and they've asked us to work out the area of the orange region. Okay, so you can start by working out the whole orange region, and you know that's going to be 20 multiplied by 35. Okay, so 20 multiplied by 35. We can just say 2 multiplied by 35 is equal to 70, and then we know that we need to add that extra 0 because we're multiplying by a multiple of 10. So that whole orange section is 700 meters squared. Okay, really important to include the unit and the squared sign. Then we need to work out the area of that compound shape in the middle of the orange rectangle. And when you go over the lesson that we did on area of compound shapes, you'll remember that I said that you can divide that compound shape into separate two-dimensional figures, ones that you are accustomed to or used to working out the area of, and you can do it that way. So I'm going to cut off that compound shape there. So I'm going to have rectangle A and rectangle B. For rectangle A, my area is going to equal 11 meters times 12 meters. Okay, that's the length and the breadth, or the breadth and the length. That's going to equal 132 meters squared. Got B, and for B, we know that the width is 3 meters. I have it circled already. So now we just need to work out the length of B, and the whole length of the white shape in the middle, that whole length there is 25 meters. So if we look at the 11 meters that's circled at the top, we need to take that off the 25. So B is going to be 14 meters. So now my area of B is going to be length 14 times breadth 3, and that equals 42 meters squared. Okay, so now the area of the entire white shape is going to be 132 plus 42, and that equals 174 meters squared. Okay, so now what I would need to do to work out the area of the orange part is I just need to subtract the area of the white compound shape. I need to subtract it from 700. Okay, and we know 700 minus 100 is 600. 600 minus 70 is 530. 530 minus 4, 526 meters squared. Okay, so work out the area of the orange shape, work out the area of the compound shape within the orange shape by splitting it up into two different rectangles, and then subtract the area of the white compound shape from the area of the orange shape. It's also possible to have worked out the area of the white compound shape by cutting it off elsewhere. Okay, so we could have cut it off there. All right, then A would have been 11 meters multiplied by 9. Okay, that length there would have been 9, because that's 3, that's 12, and 12 minus 3 is 9. So that would have given me 99 meters squared. And then the area of B at the bottom would have been 25 times 3, which equals 75. And if you added those together, 99 add 75 would have given you 174 meters squared. So exactly the same answer, and then subtract it from 700, and you would have got 526 meters squared. Okay, so that's really a common question when teachers try and ask you areas of compound shapes and rectangles, because it shows a lot of thought and it shows some good understanding if you can get that correct. Okay, question 16. Fill in the next term of the following linear number sentence. Okay, so linear would just mean it's going in order. So there you can see -4 goes up 2 to -2, goes up 2 to 0. So then after 0, your next number is going to be 2. So it's increasing by 2 each time. Here's a nice fraction question in question 17. So if you go back to the fractions lesson, we would have converted all of those to improper fractions. So that's 13 over 4. 3 times 4 plus 1 is 13. Minus 5 over 3. 1 times 3 plus 2 is 5. And you keep the same denominator. And we would have added 29 over 12. Then we needed to get a lowest common denominator, which would have been 12. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 13 is 39. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. And obviously 12 goes into 12 once. So 1 times 29 is 29. Okay, then if you add all those up, 39 minus 20 is 19. Add 19 to 29 and you get 48. So that would have given you 48 over 12. And that answer is equal to 4. Okay, so you would have chosen answer A. Okay, let's go to question 18. So at 18, you've got a percentage question. They're asking you what is the equivalent fraction of 125%. So remember, 100% is one whole number. Okay, and then 25% is a quarter. So you're looking at 1 1/4, which is answer A. Question 19. Okay, so question 19 is another percentage question. So here they're asking us, and let's just get rid of question 18 so we've got a bit of space. Okay, here they're asking us, use the given pie graph to calculate the following. So 5% of a class of 40 children play rugby. Therefore, how many children play rugby? So they're asking you, what's 5% of 40? And if you remember, 5% can be written as 5 over 100. Of is multiply, and 40 can be written as 40 over 1. Now we've got two fractions to work with. 5 over 100, 1 over 20, times 40 over 1. Okay, we've spoken about cancelling out diagonally. We can say 20 goes into 20 once and into 40 twice. Now we've got 1 times 2 in the numerator, 1 times 1 in the denominator. So you can see your answer is going to be 2 over 1, which equals 2. Okay, so only 2 children play rugby. A bit disappointing. Alternatively, you could have worked out 10% of 14, okay, because we know that to work out 10%, you just divide by 10, so that's going to equal 4. So if 10% is 4, then 5% must be equal to 2. Okay, so those are the 2 different methods that you could use for that percentage question. I would really encourage you guys to try and pause the questions before I start working through them, and then press play to see if you worked it out correctly. You need to fill in some blank spaces. So the square root of 2 is what? As it is a non-recurring infinite decimal fraction. So if it's non-recurring and it has no end, then it is irrational. Okay? So your first answer in number 1 is going to be irrational. Okay? Let's write that there. Right, your second part to the question, the number 2 over 7 it's a rational number, so it's not ending, however it is recurring. All right, so a decimal fraction that is recurring is a rational number, so 2 is going to be rational. And then question number 3, infinite decimal fraction with a reoccurring pattern of 6 digits. Okay, so 2 over 7, if you go work it out on a calculator, will have a repeat of 6 digits. Okay, that's just a little bit of theory that you need to know regarding rational and irrational numbers. Question 21. In 5 kilogram, 2 kilogram, and 1.5 kilogram packets. They cost 10 Rand 60, 4 Rand 15, and 2 Rand 80 respectively. Which is the most cost-effective packet to buy? Now it says you can use a calculator, so it's been made a little bit easy for us. So we just need to work out the cost per kilogram. So for example, if 5 kilograms cost me 10 Rand 60, how much is it for 1 kilogram? So I need to take the 10 Rand 60 and divide it by 5. So if I go 1060 on my calculator and divide it by 5, I'm going to get 2 Rand 12, okay, per kilogram. Okay, then I need to do the same thing for 2 kilograms. So there's 2 kilograms at 4 Rand 15, and I'm just leaving out the Rand sign for now. So if I divide 4 Rand 15 on my calculator by 2, that's going to give me 2 Rand, and if I round it off, 8 cents. Okay, so money only got 2 numbers after the decimal, so your actual answer there is 2,075. I need to round that off to 2,08. All right, there, 2,075. So that rounded off needs to be 2,08. So that's the 2 kilos. And then the last one is 1.5 kilos at 2 Rand 80. And if I divide 2 Rand 80 on my calculator by 1.5, I'm getting an answer of 1 Rand 87 per kilogram. Okay, so now I've worked out all the amounts per kilogram, and you should be able to see that the 1.5 kilogram packet is the cheapest option. So your answer there is option B. Okay, let's go to question 22. Is 10,000 times larger than 0,062. So let's write that down. 0,0623 is what? Okay, so now we're just trying to see if you understand how to multiply decimals by using multiples of 10. So 10,000 is 10 to the power of 4. Okay, there are 4 zeros there. So if I multiply a decimal number by 10,000, my number gets 4 places bigger. Okay, so that means my answer is going to be 623, and you can see that the 0,0623 gets 4 places bigger to 623. In question 24, John has 165 Rand and he spends 1/3 of that amount on a t-shirt and 4/5 of what he has left on a cap. How much money does he have left over? Okay, so we need to do more than one thing here. It's for 4 marks. So the first thing I need to do is I need to know how much did he spend on the t-shirt. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is work out 1/3 of 165. Now, it would be interesting, or it would be handy for you to know if 165 was divisible by 3, purely because I need to know if there's going to be a remainder or if there's a decimal. So remember, the divisibility rule of 3 is if I've got 165, if I add 1, 6, and 5, that equals 12. I know that 12 can be divided by 3, so therefore 165 is divisible by 3 with no remainders. Okay? And I can do that in a short division sum because we're only dividing by 1 digit. 3 doesn't go into the 1, it goes into the 16 5 times with 1 left over, and it goes into 15 5 times again. So the t-shirt costs him 55 Rand. That means he's got 165 minus 55 Rand left to spend on anything else. So he decides to spend 4/5 of 110 Rand on a cap. So how much is 4/5 of is multiply? How much is 4/5 of 110 Rand? So I need to divide 110 by 5 to find out 1/5. And I know that 5 is into 5 once. 5 goes into 110 22 times. Therefore, 4 times 22 is equal to 88 Rand. Okay, so from the 110 Rand, the cap cost him 88 Rand. That means he has 110 minus 88 Rand left over, and that's going to give you 22 Rand. Okay, and that will be option A. Quite a nice question to test your understanding of working out fractions of amounts, test whether you understand you have to do more than one thing. So, you know, you had to divide by 3, you had to subtract from 165, you had to then work out 4/5 of that amount and then subtract again. So there's quite a lot of work involved there, which is why it's for 4 marks. Right, let's go on to the next question, question 25. If the area of a rectangle and square are the same, then their perimeters will also be the same. Okay, so let's actually work that out by using an example. So let's say we have a square and the area of the square is 16 meters squared. We then know that the sides are 4 by 4. The perimeter of that square is going to be 16 meters because 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. Let's say now we have a rectangle that's got 16 meters squared, and it has a length of 8 and a breadth of 2. You can see now that the perimeter of the rectangle is most definitely not going to be the same as 16. That perimeter is actually going to be 20 meters. So therefore, it's false. Okay? Question 26 is regarding factors. And the best way to work this out is actually to write out the factors of 48. And remember, factors are numbers that fit perfectly into a bigger number. So the factors of 48 are 1 and 48. And I write them there because that's a factor pair. 1 times 48 is 48. 2 multiplied by 24 is 48. I know that 3 goes into 48 16 times. Separate them. Okay, 4 goes into 48 12 times. 5 doesn't, 6 does, and 6 goes in 8 times. Okay, so that's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 factors. So that as well is false. Okay, but the best thing is to write it out. Okay, don't be a clown, write everything down. Right, question 27. If prices remain unaltered from year one to the next, okay, the inflation rate it's going to be 0%. Okay, so if there's no increase in price, then there's no percentage increase. So your first answer is going to be 0%. Okay, and that's your first option in your list. If the price of an article increases from 50 Rand 1 year to 100 Rand the next year, the percentage increase is, okay, so let's go and actually work this out. It's increased by 50 Rand, and as you know from the lesson that we did in percentage increase and decrease, the increase and decrease is always put over the original amount to work out the actual percentage increase. That is equal to 1 whole, and we know that 1 whole is equal to 100%. So your second option is 100%. Then for the third part, if the price of an article increases from 50 1 year to 150 the next year, the percentage increase is, and we do the same thing, it's increased by 100 Rand. 50 to 150 is 100 Rand. We put it over the original amount, which is 50 Rand. We know that's equal to 2. Okay, so therefore that is 200%. So number 3 is going to be 200%. And there it is there on your screen. Okay, right, question 28. True or false? There are 40 children in a class. 70% of them love spaghetti. In this class, the number of children who do not love spaghetti is 12. Okay, so true or false? So let's go work out what's 70% of 40. So I'm going to go and work out 10% of 40 is equal to 4, because 40 divided by 10 is 4. Therefore, 70% is equal to 28. There are 40 children in the class. 40 take away 28 is equal to 12. So that must mean my statement is true. Question 29. Meat with a temperature of 11 degrees Celsius is placed into a freezer. It starts freezing at 0 degrees Celsius, is frozen at -4 degrees Celsius, and gets freezer burn at -13 degrees Celsius. To start freezing, the temperature must decrease by, okay, so let's work through that first. So the temperature must decrease from 11 degrees Celsius, okay, to 0 degrees Celsius. So therefore, the temperature must decrease by 11 degrees, okay? So number 1 is 11 degrees Celsius. That's how much it must decrease by. To be frozen, the temperature must decrease by how much from 11 degrees Celsius? So how much is it from 11 degrees Celsius all the way to -4 degrees Celsius? Okay, and from 11 degrees to 0 degrees is 11, and from 0 degrees to -4 degrees or -4 degrees is another 4, so that's going to give me 15 degrees Celsius. That's how much the temperature needs to decrease by. To get freezer burn, the temperature must decrease to -13, okay, so we need to go from 11 degrees Celsius to -13 degrees Celsius. So 11 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees is 11. We need to go another 13 degrees So in total there, we need to go 24 degrees Celsius. We need to go back 24 degrees, or it needs to freeze and the temperature needs to drop by 24 degrees. Quite often guys make mistake in saying, it needs to be minus 11 degrees Celsius, or it needs to be minus 15 or minus 24. Okay, they're not asking you what the actual temperature is, they're asking you what the temperature change is. Okay, so there's quite a big difference there that you need to understand. So the temperature change is just it's just a normal figure. It doesn't have a negative number in front of it. But we just know that because they're telling us it needs to decrease, so those are the values that it needs to decrease by. All right. Question 30. And this is actually our last question. So well done for getting to the end of these questions. 30 questions, I think it's 98 marks. So if you go and do this paper by yourself, you should be looking at about 1 hour and 40 minutes to complete it in. And like I've said before, I really encourage you guys to go and redo these 30 questions by yourself and then compare your answers to the online memo and see how well you did. 3/8. Okay, so when we did fractions converting to decimals and percentages, they're also called FDP. There's a lesson on it and an online activity. I said to you guys, it's really handy to learn certain fractions and their decimal and percentage equivalents. And one of those fractions was 1/8. And 1/8 is always equal to 0.125, and that's 12.5%. So straight away, because I know 1/8, I can work out 2/8, 3/8, etc. So if I just multiply that by 3, I'm going to get 0.375. And I know that to get from a decimal to a percentage, I multiply by 100. Okay, and that's going to give me 37.5%. So we know that is true. If you hadn't remembered that, then that's not a problem. We can show you how to work out 3/8 as a percentage. So remember, you just have to multiply by 100 over 1. Okay, so how do I do that? I can simplify diagonally. I know 4 goes into 8 twice and 4 goes into 125 times. Now I've got 3 multiplied by 25 in my numerator and 2 multiplied by 1 in my denominator. So that gives me 75 over 2, which equals 37.5%. And there you can see it remains true. Okay, guys, so that's our first lesson on examination practice. Please let me know if it was helpful in any way. And if it was, then I can continue doing them every so often. And I remind you again that the whole paper is online as an online activity. The memo is also there. And please go have another crack at it. Go have a look at the explanations I gave you for the questions. Have a really cool weekend. And I look forward to catching up with you guys again soon. All the best, guys. Cheers.